I am here to discuss global warming and acid rain. This module is under the paper Environmental Health in the subject of Social Medicine and Community Health. This module has been developed by a team, and the team members are myself, Dr. Madhutandra Sarkar, as content writer, Dr. V.M. Gupta as paper coordinator, and Dr. Vidya-mitra as principal investigator as well as content reviewer. This module has been developed with the intention that after completing this module, the students will be able to define global warming and elaborate the history of global warming, to state the causes of global warming, to understand the impacts or hazards of global warming, to explain the measures to control global warming. They will be able to define acid rain and state the causes of acid rain, and to understand the effects of acid rain and explain the measures to reduce its effects. The term global warming is used specifically to refer to any warming of near surface air during the past 2 centuries since the Industrial Revolution, and it is mostly due to anthropogenic causes. The current warming trends cannot be explained by the natural causes alone. The main cause of the trend is human expansion of the greenhouse effect, the warming that results when the atmosphere traps heat radiating from Earth towards space. Human activities release billions of tons of carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gases known as greenhouse gases into the atmosphere every year. In 2013, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change (IPCC) reported that the global average surface temperatures has increased about 0.85 degrees Celsius, that is approximately 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, over the period 1880 to 2012. Based on plausible emission scenarios, the IPCC estimates that average surface temperatures could rise between 2 degrees Celsius and 6 degrees Celsius by the end of the 21st century. Many climate scientists agree that significant societal, economic, and ecological damage would result if global average temperatures rose by more than 2 degrees Celsius, that is 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, in such a short time. The predicted damages include increased extinction of many plant and animal species, shifts in patterns of agriculture, rising sea level, etc. Predicted effects were already becoming visible in some regions. Acid rain is a serious environmental problem. It occurs mainly as a result of air pollution. It is a type of acid deposition in wet and dry forms. It can cause damage to lakes and streams, forests, and the plants and animals that live in these ecosystems. Acid deposition in wet and dry forms falls on buildings, cars, and trees, and it can make lakes and streams acidic. Acid deposition in dry form can be inhaled by people and can cause health problems. How to define global warming? Global warming is the unusually rapid increase in Earth's average surface temperature over the past century, primarily due to the greenhouse gases released by people burning fossil fuels. This picture depicts global mean surface temperature changes over time during the period 1880 to 2012. You can see the global mean surface temperatures has been increased over this period. What are the causes of global warming? The main cause of global warming is greenhouse gases. These gases have been built up in the atmosphere during the 20th century due to the growing use of energy and expansion of the global economy. Carbon dioxide is the most important greenhouse gas. Another greenhouse gas is methane, which is formed by anaerobic decomposition of organic matter. Other important greenhouse gases include the oxides of nitrogen, notably nitrous oxide, and halocarbons, including the chlorofluorocarbons (CFCs) and other chlorine and bromine containing compounds. The buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere alters the radiative balance of the atmosphere. They absorb some of the Earth's outgoing heat radiation and re-radiate it back towards the surface, which results into warming the Earth's surface and the lower atmosphere. Next cause is stratospheric ozone depletion. Stratospheric ozone depletion has led to a small amount of negative radiative forcing of the surface since the 1970s. This negative forcing represents a competition between two distinct effects caused by the fact that ozone absorbs solar radiation. In the first case, more solar radiation reaches Earth's surface. There is a second effect of ozone depletion that is related to its greenhouse properties. Due to ozone depletion, there is less ozone to absorb long-wave radiation emitted by Earth's surface and a corresponding decrease in the downward re-emission of radiation. This second effect overwhelms the first, resulting in modest cooling of the lower stratosphere. The third cause is aerosols in the atmosphere. Atmospheric aerosols can alter climate in two important ways. First, they scatter and absorb solar and infrared radiation, and second, they may change the microphysical and chemical properties of clouds and possibly their lifetime and extent. The scattering of solar radiation acts to cool the planet, while absorption of solar radiation by aerosols warms the air directly instead of allowing sunlight to be absorbed by the surface of the Earth. What are the impacts of global warming? The first is it can affect health. There can be health-related deaths due to increased intensity and frequency of heat waves. It can cause allergy and asthma due to increase in smog pollution. There can be outbreaks of infectious diseases, food and waterborne diseases, like there can be outbreaks of malaria, dengue fever, diarrheal illnesses, and foodborne illnesses like salmonella. Global warming can cause increase in malnutrition due to increased intensity and frequency of droughts. Global warming also has environmental impacts. It can change in weather, like there will be increase in intensity and frequency of droughts, floods, and heat waves. There will be rising sea levels. It can erode coast and there will be increased chance of coastal flooding. And also, as ice melting will occur, it can further rise the sea levels. There will be change in ecosystem. There will be change in the timing of the flower blooming. The third is socio-economic impacts. It can increase losses to property and life due to increased intensity of the floods, droughts, and the heat waves. It can reduce the availability and affordability of insurance. It can cause costly disruptions to society. And the worst affected populations are those living in low-lying coastal areas and residents of poorer countries who do not have the resources to adapt to changes in temperature extremes and water resources. Now, what are the measures by which we can control global warming? The effective measures include: we should encourage greeneries. These act as most effective carbon sinks. Opt for electric cars. These are emission-free, eco-friendly, and also safe fuel. Tap solar energy. Use solar power plants. Encourage community biogas plants. Use wind turbines to obtain power supply, improve water harvesting system, save the wetlands. They help in recharging groundwater and preserving a rich and diverse variety of aquatic flora and fauna, use solar lantern for rural home lighting, mitigate disasters, develop early warning systems for extreme heat events, prepare for stronger storms through better emergency preparation and response strategies. Ban the plastic bags which are not eco-friendly. Carbon emissions occur while they are manufactured and noxious fumes are released while they are burned or disposed of. Avoid leisurely car drives. Walk as much as possible. Carpooling is another good option. Save the rivers from sewage and industrial waste. Save the Himalayas and other high mountains. Save trees. Avoid using papers and use email. Use bicycle, which is a zero pollution vehicle. Cycling is a very good exercise. It prevents obesity and improves health. Now we will look at acid rain. How to define acid rain? Acid rain is rain that has been made acidic by certain pollutants in the air. It is a type of acid deposition which can appear in many forms, that is, wet and dry forms. Wet deposition is rain, sleet, snow, or fog that has become more acidic than normal. Dry deposition is another form of acid deposition, and this is when gases and dust particles become acidic. Both wet and dry deposition can be carried by the wind, sometimes for very long distances. Even the final effects of the pollutants can occur as much as 1,000 miles away from the place where they are released. Pure rainwater is normally acidic. Its pH is 5.6. Other particles such as pollutants in the atmosphere can lower the acidity level of rain so that pH falls below the generally acceptable level of 5 to 6. Then the rainwater is referred to as acid rain. What are the causes of acid rain? Acid rain is a result of air pollution. Power stations, factories, and cars, while burning fuels, produce polluting gases which are harmful to the environment. Eventually, these gases, especially nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide, react with the tiny droplets of water in clouds to form sulfuric and nitric acids. The rain from these clouds then falls as acid rain. This picture depicts formation of acid rain. You can see that sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides are getting released from factories. They are moving by the wind, and the gaseous pollutants and particulate pollutants, they are reacting with the tiny droplets of water in the cloud and forming acids, and these acids are then falling as acid rain. And gaseous pollutants and particulate pollutants in atmosphere becomes acidic, and they are depositing as acid rain in the dry form. And in this picture you can see volcanoes has been shown as the natural source of acid rain. And in this picture you can see that volcanoes has been shown as the natural source of acid rain. What are the sources of the polluting gases? It can be natural sources and anthropogenic sources. In nature, bushfires, volcanic eruptions, and the decay of organic matter produce significant amounts of sulfur dioxide. Bushfires, microbial processes in soil, and lightning discharges are the natural sources of nitrogen oxides. What are the anthropogenic sources? Nitrogen oxides are produced mainly from the burning of fossil fuels such as petrol in cars, and coal in coal-fired power stations. Sulfur dioxide is formed primarily in the burning of sulfur-containing coal and other fossil fuels and in metals melters. What are the effects of acid rain? Acid rain has adverse effects on ecosystems. Some lakes in countries such as Sweden have become acidic from acid rain caused by pollution. In other countries such as United Kingdom, these lakes are no longer able to support fish life. Acid rain also has the potential to affect tree and plant life by direct contact with the plants and also by modifying the acidity of soils, for example, mobilizing toxic aluminium in the soil. Acid rain has adverse effects on health, like nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide in acid rain is related to various health problems, particularly eye irritations and lung disorders such as asthma and bronchitis. Nitrogen oxides are also a major contributor to the formation of ozone in the lower atmosphere, which can also have detrimental health effects on human beings. Another obvious health consideration is the indirect effect on resources such as food and water, which can become contaminated and cause illnesses. Acid rain has also adverse effects on materials. Acid rain can have varying and damaging effects on many different materials such as metals, building, paints, paper, photographic materials, textiles, leather, and rubber. A further consideration is the cost of replacement and repair of many structures and objects that are still in use today. What are the measures to reduce the effects of acid rain? The first measures is measures to reduce the emission of polluting gases. The second is measures to prevent formation of acid rain. And the third is measures to restore the damage caused by acid rain. What are the measures to reduce the emission of polluting gases? The most effective way to reduce the incidence of acid deposition is to reduce the emission of its precursors, that is, nitrogen oxides and sulfur dioxide. First, nitrogen oxide reduction is possible by catalytic reduction, by using less air in combustion, by lowering the temperature of combustion. Catalytic reduction is the main method of lowering the levels of nitrogen oxides. This method is used in industry and in motor vehicles. Using less air in combustion can reduce emissions of nitrogen oxides. Lowering the temperature of combustion by using processes such as two-stage combustion, flue gas recirculation, water injection, or by modifying the design of the burner. Next, sulfur dioxide reduction. This includes simple methods of prevention such as using coal with a low sulfur content and physical coal cleaning to reduce emissions from coal-fired power stations. More complex methods are needed to reduce emissions where sulfur dioxide exists in greater quantities. These can include processes such as flue gas desulfurization and fluidized bed combustion. Use coal with low sulfur content. Physical coal cleaning. Coal can be cleaned because sulfur in coal is often in the form of mineral impurities such as pyrites, and these can be separated from the coal. The more finely coal is crushed before use, the more impurities such as sulfur that are removed from it. Flue gas desulfurization is based on using limestone to absorb the sulfur dioxide and is one of the most effective methods of removal. However, the process generates solid waste which require disposal. Fluidized bed combustion. In the process, the coal is crushed and passed into a fluidized bed for combustion. The sulfur dioxide can then be absorbed by the limestone particles in the bed. Fluidized bed combustion can be operated at lower temperatures and therefore produces less nitrogen oxide, but once again solid waste is created and requires disposal. Next measures to prevent formation of acid rain. Conserve electricity by turning off lights, appliances and computers when they are not being used. Use energy efficient light bulbs at home. This will reduce the amount of energy used and in turn reduce the amount of emissions produced by power plants. Use energy saving products and appliances including TVs, computers, refrigerators, washing machines, air conditioners, furnaces, etc. Change transportation habits. Try to reduce car travel by walking, biking, or taking public transportation. Carpooling is another option. Drive the most fuel efficient car. Find alternative sources of energy like solar energy or windmills. Next is measures to restore the damage caused by acid rain. Lakes and rivers can have powdered limestone added to them to neutralize the water. This is called liming. Liming is expensive. It has only temporary effects and it needs to be continued until the acid rain stops. So to summarize, global warming is a serious issue faced by the planet Earth. The recent warming is mostly due to anthropogenic causes. The impact of global warming is far larger than just increasing temperatures. It affects human health, environment, and economy. Global warming modifies rainfall patterns, amplifies coastal erosion, lengthens the growing season in some regions, melts ice caps and glaciers, and alters the ranges of some infectious diseases. We should get prepared for these changes caused by global warming to reduce their effects on our well-being. Acid rain is a serious environmental problem. It occurs as a result of air pollution. Acid rain affects trees, water, soil, and buildings. The most effective way to reduce the incidence of acid deposition is to reduce the emission of its precursors, that is, nitrous oxides and sulfur dioxide. In this context, I want to discuss in little more detail about the greenhouse gases and briefly about the greenhouse and greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is the most significant greenhouse gas. Methane is the second most important greenhouse gas, and the water vapor is the most potent greenhouse gas. And the carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, ozone, and water vapor are the naturally present in the atmosphere. Whereas the fluorinated gases owe their existence almost entirely to industrial sources. They include hydrofluorocarbons (HFCs), perfluorocarbons (PFCs), sulfur hexafluoride, and nitrogen trifluoride. Surface or low-level ozone is a result of air pollution. It must be distinguished from naturally occurring stratospheric ozone, which has a very different role in the planetary radiation balance. And the behavior of water vapor is fundamentally different from that of the other greenhouse gases. Human activities, especially combustion of fossil fuels since the Industrial Revolution, are responsible for steady increases in atmospheric concentrations of various greenhouse gases. So the main cause of the current global warming trend is the enhanced greenhouse effect, that is, warming that results when the atmosphere traps heat radiating from the earth towards space. Now, what is a greenhouse? A greenhouse is a house where the walls and roof are made of glass. An important property of glass is that it transmits infrared radiation of very short wavelength, that is coming from extremely hot bodies like the sun, while it reflects infrared radiations of long wavelengths emitted by less hot objects like those inside a greenhouse. This property of glass is used to keep the plants warm and safe in a greenhouse during the winter. The glass of a greenhouse allows the visible light and infrared radiations of short wavelength to pass through. The radiations from the sun are therefore able to penetrate the glass and enter into the greenhouse. These radiations are then absorbed by the plants and other objects inside the greenhouse. As a result, they become warm. The warm objects emit infrared radiations of longer wavelengths. These longer wavelength radiations are reflected by the glass and are retained inside. The heat remains inside the greenhouse and keeps it warm. Next, what is greenhouse effect? The greenhouse effect is a natural process that warms the Earth's surface. The sun powers the Earth's climate, radiating energy at very short wavelengths, predominantly in the visible or near visible, for example, ultraviolet part of the spectrum. Roughly one-third of the solar energy that reaches the top of the Earth's atmosphere is reflected directly back to space. The remaining two-thirds is absorbed by the surface and to a lesser extent by the atmosphere. To balance the absorbed incoming energy, the Earth must, on average, radiate the same amount of energy back to space. Because the Earth is much colder than the Sun, it radiates at much longer wavelengths, primarily in the infrared part of the spectrum. Much of this thermal radiation emitted by the land and ocean is absorbed by the atmosphere, including clouds, and re-radiated back to the Earth. The atmosphere surrounding the Earth contains the greenhouse gases and acts like a blanket, trapping more heat and turning the Earth into a greenhouse. This is called the greenhouse effect. If there were no greenhouse effect, the Earth's average surface temperature would be a very chilly minus 18 degrees Celsius, that is 0 degree Fahrenheit, instead of the comfortable 15 degrees Celsius, that is 59 degrees Fahrenheit, that it is today. The greenhouse effect is somewhat similar to the process that goes on in a real greenhouse. The glass walls in a greenhouse reduce airflow and increase the temperature of the air inside. Analogously, but through a different physical process, the Earth's greenhouse effect warms the surface of the planet. The natural greenhouse effect is beneficial for life on Earth. As I have already described, human activities, particularly the burning of fossil fuels, that is coal, oil, and natural gas, and clearing of forests, are increasing the concentration of greenhouse gases and thus are greatly intensifying the natural greenhouse effect, causing global warming. This is called the enhanced greenhouse effect. Thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala and listening to this module.